Hello. Today we're going to be working on a project making a simple box which is going to hold a security system, which is a surveillance system, and we just want to secure that system from just tampering, not necessarily from theft, but just tampering. So the box really doesn't need to be that strong, and therefore we're going to use white 1/4 inch thick acrylic. A lot of you may know, if you're not familiar with plastic, you may know it as plexiglass. Plexiglass is a brand name. The generic name is acrylic. In order to cut acrylic and come out with a smooth cut, you want to use a blade that we use, which is called a triple chip. The carbide tooth on it, on every other tooth, it's a 45-degree cut on both sides of it that helps prevent not only chipping to the plastic, but it cuts down on the friction, because if you have too much friction, then your plastic could melt and really kind of gum on you. And it's important actually to know what type of plastic you're working with also, because you can have extruded plastic creates much more, or heats up a lot faster than a cast material. So cast material is the best material to work with, even though you can work with the extruded type of material that just will melt and gum upon you a little bit quicker than cast. We're going to cut our parts right now and get this part out of the way, and then we'll start the assembly once we make up our door that's going to have a locking key put in that with a pin hinge. That door is going to be a pin hinge, so it just swings. We've cut all our components for the box. Now we need to get rid of the saw cut edge. It's going to allow for a solid bond when we bond the pieces together. So we're putting them through a simple planer. Some will call it a joiner planer. We just call it a planer because it's a tool with 3 blades on it, 3 cutting blades on it, that's going to put a nice edge, smooth edge for our assembly. Now that we have smoothed out the edges from a rough saw cut edge, we can start the setup process for bonding the pieces together. For this part of the assembly, we need to cut a groove or a notch in the plastic for our key assembly to have something to grab a hold to. So we're cutting the groove for this part to be slotted down in the bottom panel of the box. So we can see we've already drilled our hole for the key lock. This is the door for the box. We still have to put our pin hinges in each corner to allow it to swing. Now we need to line up our router. We're using a 3/16 double edge drill bit, or router bit I should say, and we want to line it up. We're just going to, instead of presetting the CNC, we're just going to do this manually instead of going through an entire setup. It's an easy cut. So we've cut our slot, and if you don't have a CNC, which I'm sure many of you will not have, you can definitely do this with a keyhole saw. You just have to set up a little template for it to make sure you're cutting a nice straight line. So now that we have that cut, we're ready to set our pin hinges in the. Alright, we are ready for assembly. Our bottom part of the box, we're going to peel the paper from it. We won't need that anymore. Our left wall to the unit. In fact, we're going to switch. I see there's a bit of a bow in the part, but being that I have the notch here for the door, they have to go on the same way, so I have to live with the bow. I want to peel this. A little bit of paper there, and as you can see, we have a stop here. This is put together, which is using plastic, but it automatically gives me a 90-degree angle that I know everything is being squared up properly. So once I put that there, then I'm going to use my clamps to hold that in place. There, I apply a little pressure to make sure it's firmly down on the base. I'm going to use a thin piece of film paper to check to see if there's any gaps. If the film does not go in between, that means it's solid. If there was a gap and the film was to go in between, then I would have to take another piece of film and put up under this base so the gap is closed up completely. I'm going to take my solution, which is called Weld On 3. It's a bonding agent that won't even glue a piece of paper together. It actually makes the plastic melt down and adhere itself together. So I'm going to take this and run it right in the seam. I'm going to be generous with it to make sure there's plenty enough to fill up under the 1/4 inch piece of plastic being bonded. I'm going to see if I can't bring my light a little bit further over. Get a little bit more light on there so you can see the inside of that. That only takes seconds, literally seconds, to set up and to start bonding. For the total curing of the bonding process actually takes right around 24 hours, but it doesn't take long for it to sit up that we can continue to work with it. So as that is setting up, I'm only going to let it set for about 20 to 30 seconds. And we're ready to move on. Now that I've peeled that, I can release this now. And you can see that's nice and solid already. I'm going to turn this around, get this piece set up, make sure my notch is on the same side, even up the ends, apply a little pressure, put my clamps in place, double check, and then run some more, which I did not double check, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty closed up. This table, naturally, when I built this table, I built it to be pretty level. So most of the time I do not have to make too many adjustments unless it's a very long piece. And then there might show up a few gaps on a short piece like this here, which is only about 11 inches from here to here. That's going to close up pretty easy. So once we've bonded that, now we're going to peel. I'm going to leave one side on there. You can see we have holes placed in here, which are actually 3/16 holes. That is going to be our lips for this box. This is only a 3-sided box, 4 sides if you want to count the swinging door, because this is going to get mounted here, and that's just our set screws to be able to mount this box to the bottom of a shelf, which is inside of a closet. That's where the unit is going to be placed. Now that we have this set, I'm going to release these clamps. Again, it doesn't take very long to set up. Now if I wanted to pull that back off, I could pull it back off, as long as I don't wait too long. Once I've waited a good 15 minutes to 20 minutes, we're going to catch hell taking that back off. This sets up very, very well. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my template that I use. I can get rid of that, because now to bond the other parts here, and I'm going to do it this way, make that so it's even, But my notches, which is for my door, you can see how we set these pin hinges. That's how we're going to allow the door to swing. You can see we set that recessed about a little over 1/4 of an inch, probably about 5/16 into the edge of the plastic. This piece right here is only 3/32 in diameter, so to make for a nice little hinge. And we need to actually put that in place because it is a permanent door. And I'll show you what I mean by pulling back apart. A slight mistake has been made here. Bam, you can see I can pull that back off. Pull this side back off. I was supposed to be bonding not to the surface but to the side to allow my door to go in. So we have to back up. Mistakes are always made, but as you can see, there's an easy solution here. I'm going to pull my template back up because now I have to bond this in the proper. Where's my placement holes? There we go. I want to put that back in the same place so I don't create new holes. Okay, now that that's back, I'm going to put that out of the way, peel the other side of this so I can bond to the right proper side. So we'll take that off, and the side plates now, and that's where what I was supposed to be doing in the first place is bonding this to that wall. So you can see now there's a much higher piece to work with here, but it still clamps the same way. That, put a little bit of pressure, line everything up. So as you can see, even though I made an error, you always have time for correction, which is what's so good. Okay, now we have that one side on. We're going to flip it to the opposite side. Naturally, we want all this debris off of your piece. You don't want debris to end up between or in your joint. If there's debris in your joint, then you may not have a nice solid bond. Apply a little pressure there. Make sure it is even. Let's double check for gaps. It feels pretty good. There's a slight little opening right there, but in this case it's not going to hurt anything. And it's going to fill it up. Press. We got our notches lined up properly. I went ahead and took the liberty to mount the lock onto the door, so we can put that in there once we put our lips on. We just have to give this a few seconds to set up. We'll get these ready. Again, get rid of any debris. That should be long enough. Yep, in fact we can tell that she filled up pretty well because it came out on the back side. And to keep that from ruining your project, especially if you was doing something for a high quality result, that you want high quality results, there's a gap in here. I put a saw cut gap in here, and that is supposed to line up with the level of the seam here. So therefore there's nothing up against this rail to overflow onto and make it glue here and get all onto your facing, which is very ugly looking. You would not want that giving that to a customer. So now we're going to set this on here, and naturally I have to put both lips on just to make sure this is level, and therefore I have the same good 90-degree angle going on everything. And I can take my lock here, and where's my key, because I'm going to probably make sure that that's working, and put it in the groove. Now I'm going to line this up. I'm going to feel on the inside that is lined up, front and on the inside, and I'm going to get me a weight. I have some weights right here. This is how I'm going to create my pressure, being that there's no place for me to use clamps here. So I'm going to create my pressure with a little bit of weight and check for gaps. You can see, perfect. And if you were trying to do this with just a saw cut edge, it would not be a very good bond. It's a very weak bond with saw cut edges, because your saw cut edge is not smooth enough to create a nice closed up space. Saw cut edges, if you know, they kind of bounce up and down, back and forth. There's nothing perfectly smooth. So if you bond that saw cut edge, guaranteed you have a weak piece. Now we have that set up. I'm going to go ahead and line this side up, because I don't want to wait for this side to set up in bonding. And I'm going to line this up and check for gaps. That's pretty good on gaps. And in this particular case, I'm going to run my solution, and I'm going to just hold it, because again, it only takes seconds for this to set up. You can imagine that's probably about 15 seconds already. While I'm doing this, matter of fact, I can close my door up and make sure everything looks good. Yep, it flops okay, so we know that part works. And let's see, we'll stick the key in it, if we can get the key in it. Just to roll it back out. And yep, so you can see that's lining up pretty good for our door. Naturally we have some gap through here, but remember, this box is not being set this way. It's going to be turned upside down, mounted to the bottom of a shelf, so that door is automatically going to drop down and hang. So we should be pretty secure now. We can take our weight off and actually flip this in the direction, and bam. Therefore you can see our lips that went over the top here actually sealed in, locked in our pin hinge, so the door cannot come out. So once you do that, that's where you'll be able to get into the unit for any adjustments, camera adjustments or whatnot, to your security box, and have a nice secure lock. The last step on this is we're going to polish all the edges. We're not going to do that in this particular setting, because we want our bonding to set up. As I said earlier, it takes almost 24 hours for the curing process to complete. If we try to polish the edges, and we're going to do the polishing by flame polishing. Okay, so we're using a torch. And we're going to run that torch flame across the edges just to give it a high gloss finish to it. If we was to do that right now, the where it's bonding at would actually start to bubble because it has not finished its curing process. We have to wait till that finishes and everything is perfectly hard before you polish the edges. You could polish these edges here because there's nothing bonded there. Okay, any place you have a bond, if we go to polish that edge right there, then that heat would affect that seam. It would still be strong, but you would just have bubbles coming out of that seam, which again is not very pretty. So you wait until everything hardens up before you polish. That's normally for us just the following day. So in that project right there is actually complete. As you can see, very simple little box to put together, which ends up as a little security box for a security surveillance camera system, and that'll just seal that off quite naturally. If you wanted something more secure than what this is, then you would try and make it out of steel, some type of metal. In this particular case, you just don't want passing hands to be able to make adjustments on the security cameras. That'll wind it up for this segment. We'll see you again on the next project.